I met Lilly during spring semester at Austin Community College. She was performing in a student showcase, some experimental one-act about loneliness and city lights, written by a playwright nobody had heard of but everyone pretended to understand. I'd only gone because my roommate Marcus was dating someone in the crew, but the moment Lilly stepped onto that cramped black box stage, something shifted in the stale theater air. She wasn't conventionally beautiful in the way magazines sold it. Her features were sharp, intense, high cheekbones that cast shadows under the stage lights, eyes that seemed to see through the fourth wall and into something deeper. When she spoke her lines, she didn't just recite them, she lived inside them, her whole body electric with purpose, every gesture deliberate yet somehow natural. The small audience of maybe 40 people sat transfixed. After the show, I found myself waiting by the lobby, fumbling with a compliment that came out clumsy and sincere. My hands were still stained with motor oil I hadn't been able to scrub completely clean, and I was suddenly conscious of how out of place I looked among the theater crowd in their black clothing and deliberate dishevelment. You were. That was really something. Lilly laughed, not unkindly, pulling off her stage makeup with a wipe that came away black. Really something good or really something terrible? Good. Definitely good. I don't know much about theater, but I know when someone's real up there. She tilted her head, studying me with those dark, quick eyes that missed nothing. You don't look like the theater type. I'm not, I admitted, shoving my hands in my pockets. I fix cars. Transmissions, mostly. Sometimes engines when they're interesting. Honest work, she said, and somehow it didn't sound condescending. She said it like she meant it, like she respected the grease under my nails more than the pretentious program notes she'd been handed all night. We went for coffee at a 24-hour diner on Riverside that turned into breakfast as the sun came up. She talked about New York, Los Angeles, the stages she'd conquer, not if, but when. She described auditions she'd had, roles she'd played, the feeling of becoming someone else entirely. I talked about my father's old garage in Lockhart, about engines and the satisfaction of solving mechanical problems, about the rhythm of diagnostics and repair. She called me grounded. I called her a comet. 3 months later, we moved in together, a cramped apartment near Riverside Drive with water stains on the ceiling shaped like continents and neighbors who fought in Spanish at 2 a.m. The rent was cheap enough that Lilly could waitress part-time at a breakfast place on South Congress and still make additions. I worked at Henderson's Auto Repair, coming home with oil under my fingernails and stories about blown transmissions and customers who thought premium gas was a scam. It was good. Chaotic, but good. The kind of good that feels sustainable when you're young and everything still seems possible. She'd practice monologues while I cooked pasta, her voice rising and falling with emotion while I stirred sauce and pretended not to be completely mesmerized. I'd fall asleep to her reading scripts aloud, her voice rising and falling like music, sometimes shaking me awake at midnight to run lines for an audition the next day. On Sundays we'd drive out to Hamilton Pool, lying on warm rocks, talking about futures that felt close enough to touch. I'm going to be on a real stage someday, Lilly would say, eyes closed against the sun, one hand trailing in the cold spring water. Broadway. Maybe film. Somewhere that matters. Somewhere people will remember. You'll get there, I always replied, and I meant it. I believed it. Everyone who saw her believed it. She had that quality. Undeniable, magnetic, the kind of talent that made you certain you were watching someone before they became someone. Then came the night she showed me the pregnancy test, 2 pink lines that rewrote everything. She stared at it like it was a verdict, not a beginning, sitting on the closed toilet lid in our bathroom with its cracked tile and flickering light. I felt my stomach drop, but I reached for her hand anyway, her fingers cold and trembling. We can do this, I said. She didn't answer right away. Just kept staring at those 2 lines like they might disappear if she looked hard enough. The ultrasound appointment 2 weeks later changed the math entirely. Twins. The technician smiled like it was wonderful news, pointing at the screen with her stylus, showing us 2 tiny beans with flickering heartbeats. Lilly went pale, her hand tightening around mine until my bones ached. I squeezed back, trying to anchor her, trying to be the steady thing she could hold on to. That night, she cried in a way I'd never seen, deep, choking sobs that scared me, her whole body shaking against my chest. I held her on our second-hand couch and promised things I wasn't sure I could deliver. Promises about help, about balance, about her dreams not dying, about finding a way to make it all work. But they did die in a way. Slowly. Quietly. Like a plant you forget to water until one day you realize it's beyond saving. The acceptance letter from the Stella Adler studio arrived 3 days after she found out she was pregnant. Full scholarship to their summer intensive in New York. The kind of opportunity people spent years chasing, the kind that opened doors to agents and casting directors and real careers. I watched her read it standing in our kitchen, the envelope shaking in her hands. Lilly held the letter for a long time, reading it over and over, her lips moving silently. Then she folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer beside the bathroom sink, and never mentioned it again. But I would catch her sometimes, standing in front of that drawer, her hand on the handle, not opening it. Just standing there. The months passed. Her body changed in ways that frightened her. Auditions stopped, partly because she started showing, partly because she stopped trying. The monologues went silent. She stopped going to the theater, stopped seeing her actor friends, stopped reading Backstage magazine. Our apartment filled with baby books and prenatal vitamins, and a growing silence about the future she'd planned. When Jane and Daniel were born on a humid August night at St. David's Medical Center, I thought maybe this would be the reset. Maybe love would rewrite the loss. Maybe the moment she held them, everything would make sense. Lilly held them, kissed their heads, whispered soft things in a voice I'd never heard before. But even then, even in that hospital room with terrible fluorescent lighting and the smell of antiseptic, even as she counted their tiny fingers and marveled at their weight, I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Something that looked like grief. I still associate that summer with smoke. Not the dramatic kind, just the lazy, greasy haze of backyard grilling, cheap charcoal from H-E-B, and something sour-sweet in a plastic pitcher someone called lemonade. It was a weekend afternoon on our dead-end street near Round Rock, one of those Texas days where the heat presses down on you like a physical weight, where the air shimmers over the asphalt and even the cicadas sound exhausted, but you pretend you're fine because everyone else is pretending too. Our kids, Jane and Daniel, were barely 3. Sticky fingers from popsicles, sunburned noses despite the sunscreen I'd slathered on, screaming like they were auditioning for a siren factory. I stood by the grill, flipping sausages that were starting to split and curl, shirt soaked through with sweat that trickled down my spine and gathered at my belt, when Lilly came flying out of the house like she'd been holding her breath for years. "You trapped me," she yelled. No warning. No build-up. Just fire. The guy next door, Bill Hernandez, off-duty constable with a beer in each hand, paused mid-drink, the bottle frozen halfway to his lips. A couple of kids froze mid-throw, a frisbee hanging in the air before clattering to the pavement. Mrs. Patterson's conversation with Betty died mid-sentence. Lilly didn't care. Her hair was a mess, pulled half out of a ponytail, eyeliner smeared in a way that could have been tears or rage. Probably both. "I'm 26 and my whole life smells like diapers and your stupid work boots from that goddamn garage," she snapped, her voice cracking on the last word, hands clenched into fists at her sides. I stood there with the tongs in my hand, smoke rising around me like I was standing in ruins, unsure whether to laugh or disappear. The burgers were starting to char, edges blackening. Someone's kid whimpered. I could feel every pair of eyes in the yard fixed on us. "Lilly," I said quietly, nodding toward the kids. Jane was staring with her thumb in her mouth. Daniel had stopped mid-run, toward the neighbors pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. "This isn't the place. We're supposed to be doing this together. We are together." She laughed like I'd told a joke that insulted her intelligence, harsh, bitter, a sound I didn't recognize from the woman who used to laugh at my stupid jokes about carburetors. Together? I was supposed to be somewhere else, Oscar. On a stage. In front of cameras. Not playing pretend family in a cul-de-sac in Round fucking Rock while you smell like motor oil and I smell like baby vomit. I'd heard versions of this speech before. Late at night when the kids finally slept. Early mornings before work. Whispered arguments that never quite resolved. Lilly had been the star in school. Led roles, standing ovations, acceptance letters from places that mattered. Places in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles. Then the pregnancy. Twins. No plan survived that year. No dream made it through intact. We were never married. I asked, more than once. Once with a ring I couldn't afford, bought on credit from a pawn shop on South Congress, a small diamond that probably wasn't even real. Once with nothing but shaking hands at the kitchen sink on a Tuesday morning before work, words tumbling out desperate and clumsy. She always waved it off. "Why ruin something good with paperwork?" she'd say, like marriage was a bureaucratic inconvenience rather than a promise, rather than proof of permanence. I thought time would fix it. Turns out time just clarified things, brought them into sharp focus until you couldn't pretend anymore. Let's go inside, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, trying to sound reasonable, trying to be the calm one. The kids? No. I'm done. She grabbed her bag, the leather one her mother bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, the one she'd called too expensive to use. Keys clinking like punctuation, jumped into the silver Honda Civic her parents had co-signed for, and tore down the street fast enough to leave rubber. Fast enough that Bill actually took a step forward like he might need to intervene. I burned everything on the grill. Didn't notice until the smoke turned black and acrid. Didn't care. Mrs. Patterson from across the street wandered over eventually, patting my arm like you do when someone dies, her weathered hand gentle. She'll calm down, she said, her voice gentle, eyes full of pity that made me want to disappear. Give her the night. People say things they don't mean when they're overwhelmed. But she meant it. I knew that even then. Lily didn't come back that night, or the next. I put the kids to bed alone, Jane asking questions I couldn't answer without lying, Daniel clutching his stuffed elephant and staring at the door like Lily might walk through any second if he just watched hard enough. I made up a story about Mommy visiting a friend, about her coming back soon. The lies tasted like ash, stuck in my throat. On Monday there was a note on the fridge, held up by a magnet shaped like Texas that we'd bought at a gas station somewhere. For words in her sharp, dramatic handwriting. No signature. No explanation. I need space. I called. Straight to voicemail. Her voice on the recording sounded like a stranger's, bright, performative, the voice she used for auditions, not the voice she used with me. Hi, you've reached Lily. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll call you back. Except she wouldn't. By lunchtime her mother texted me from Houston, where they'd apparently been in contact even though Lily couldn't answer my calls. She's safe. Don't worry. Safe. Right. Safe somewhere that wasn't here, wasn't with her kids, wasn't facing what she'd left behind. I stood in the garage at Henderson's Auto Repair, elbow deep in an engine rebuild, transmission fluid under my nails, while my phone buzzed with concerned messages from neighbors. Betty from 2 doors down offered to bring dinner, showed up that night with a casserole and refused to leave until I ate some. Bill asked if I needed anything, his cop voice trying to hide his concern. Even old Mr. Chun, who barely spoke English and usually kept to himself, gave me a firm nod when he saw me in the driveway, a nod that somehow communicated more than words. The week blurred. I worked extra shifts at the shop, grease ground into my skin like a second layer, calluses forming on calluses, just to keep the lights on and my mind from spinning in circles. Every morning and night the kids asked the same question in different variations. Where's Mommy? When is Mommy coming home? Did we make Mommy mad? I lied. Badly. She's helping Grandma. She's working on something important. She'll be back soon. Each lie harder than the last. Jane stopped asking after day 4, her little face shutting down in a way that scared me. Daniel kept going for another week, then started having nightmares that left him screaming at 2 a.m. Friday afternoon, 9 days after she left, Lily finally called. Her voice was cheerful, bright, like nothing had happened, like she'd just stepped out for groceries instead of abandoning us in front of the entire neighborhood, instead of leaving me to explain to 3-year-olds why their mother was gone. I'm going to Los Angeles, she said, and I could hear traffic in the background, hear the distance already opening up. I got an audition through this amazing connection. A real casting director, Oscar. Network television. This could be it. My hand tightened on the phone until my knuckles went white. What about the kids? Silence. Then, this is my chance. I'll come back when I feel like myself again. When's that? I asked, trying to keep my voice level, trying not to scream. She didn't answer. Just hung up. The dial tone felt like punctuation. That was the moment it landed. Not dramatically. Just heavy and final, like a door closing in an empty house. A weight settling in my chest that I knew wouldn't lift. She wasn't coming back soon. Maybe ever. The house felt different without her. Thicker somehow, like the air itself had changed density. Rooms that used to feel cramped now felt empty. Her absence was louder than her presence had ever been. I worked mornings at Henderson's and picked up night shifts at Rodriguez Auto Body on the south side of town, catching sleep in 3-hour intervals between jobs. Daycare drained what little money I had. 2 kids at Little Scholars Early Learning Center in Cedar Park cost more than our rent used to be. Every paycheck disappeared before I could cash it, split between childcare, bills, groceries bought in bulk at Sam's Club. I picked the kids up late almost every day, guilt riding shotgun the whole drive home, watching other parents arrive on time with snacks and patience and energy I couldn't manufacture. Jane started crying at drop-off, clinging to my leg until the teachers had to pry her off. Daniel stopped talking as much, just watched everything with these big, sad eyes that killed me. Lilly called twice that first month. Once to tell me not to guilt her, her voice defensive, angry, like I was the one who'd left, like I was doing something to her instead of just trying to survive. Once to announce a commercial callback like it was a Nobel Prize, breathless with excitement about a 30-second spot for car insurance where she'd play Woman in Traffic. Both times she avoided the same question. When are you coming home? Both times she changed the subject, talked about opportunities and networking and putting myself out there. By month 2, the calls stopped entirely. Her social media didn't. I stopped checking after a while. It was like picking at a wound. But screenshots found me anyway, forwarded by her cousin Rachel, who thought I should know, by mutual friends who didn't know what else to say. Smiling selfies on rooftops at sunset, the LA skyline glittering behind her. Drinks with names I couldn't pronounce, photographed from artful angles. Hashtags about finding herself, about choosing joy, about new beginnings. No kids. No mentions of Jane or Daniel. Just freedom wrapped in Valencia filters and inspirational quotes. One night in October, I forgot to pick the twins up from daycare. Passed out on the couch surrounded by overdue notices from Austin Energy and Time Warner Cable. My phone dead because I'd forgotten to charge it after working a double shift. The daycare director called my work phone at 7 p.m., her voice gentle but worried, professional concern bleeding into something more human. When I arrived 45 minutes late, the last parent, the last kids there, Jane hugged my leg and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy." Daniel just took my hand without saying anything. That nearly broke me. I cried in the parking lot after buckling them in, my forehead pressed against the steering wheel while they sat quiet in the back seat, too young to understand but old enough to feel everything, old enough to know their father was falling apart. The neighbors noticed before I admitted it. Meals appeared on the porch like clockwork, casseroles from Mrs. Patterson with handwritten reheating instructions, tamales from the Hernandez family wrapped in foil, even mystery tuna bakes from Mr. Chun that the kids somehow loved despite my suspicions about the ingredients. Offers to watch the kids came without me asking, presented casually like they were doing me a favor when really they were saving my life. Betty started picking up Jane and Daniel from daycare twice a week, refusing payment, refusing even gas money. "We take care of our own," she said, like it was simple, like community was just what you did. One evening in November, Mrs. Patterson sat beside me on the porch while the kids played in the yard. Jane pushing Daniel on the tire swing bill had hung from the oak tree, and said what I already knew. "She's not coming back the way you're hoping, honey." I nodded, watching the kids, watching them laugh despite everything. "I know. You need to protect them. Legally. I know that too." 6 months in, I stopped waiting. Stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed. Stopped listening for her car in the driveway. Just stopped. We weren't married, which complicated things legally, but my name was on both birth certificates. That mattered. I couldn't risk her drifting back months or years later with money and lawyers, claiming rights she'd abandoned while I was drowning, taking the kids I'd raised alone. So I called a lawyer, Maria Gonzalez from a family practice off Burnett Road that Bill recommended. I told her everything. Showed her the silence, the unanswered calls, the text messages that went nowhere. The proof. The documentation. The responsibility I'd been carrying alone. "It won't be easy," she said, her eyes kind but honest, sitting across from me in her small office with family photos on the wall. "But it's doable. Document everything. Keep records. Save every message, every missed call. Build your case." I signed the papers the next day, my hand shaking so hard the signature barely looked like mine, pen scratching across forms that would change everything. Lilly called furious when she was served 3 weeks later, shouting over club music somewhere far away. Los Angeles, maybe, or Las Vegas, somewhere that wasn't here. "You can't do this. You can't just take them." "I already did," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, steadier than I felt. "You left. You've been gone 7 months. I needed time. Time ended when you stopped calling them. Time ended when they stopped asking about you." She never fought it. Not really. Her lawyer sent one letter, a half-hearted challenge that went nowhere. Then nothing. She didn't show up for hearings. Didn't contest. Just let it happen. 2 years passed. The kids barely remembered her voice. When Daniel tried to remember, he got confused, mixed her up with characters from TV shows. Jane remembered more, or thought she did, but the memories were getting hazier. Life became work, school, exhaustion, repetition. Hard but stable. Predictable. Safe. We built routines that felt like scaffolding, holding us up. Daniel started kindergarten at Round Rock Elementary, his backpack bigger than him. Jane learned to read before she started school, sitting in my lap after 12-hour shifts while we sounded out words together, her finger tracing lines while I tried not to fall asleep. We had routines. Bedtimes at 8 p.m. Rules about vegetables and screen time. Normal things that felt like victories. Henderson promoted me to shop supervisor. The pay helped. So did the neighbors who never stopped showing up. Bill teaching Daniel how to throw a football in the yard every Sunday. Mrs. Patterson braiding Jane's hair for picture day when I couldn't figure out the French braid YouTube tutorial. Mr. Chin fixing our fence without asking, just showing up one Saturday with tools and lumber. Then the call came. "It's done," Maria said, her voice warm over the phone. "Full custody. The judge signed off this morning." I sat there in the garage's break room, phone in my hand, surrounded by the smell of burnt coffee and grease, unsure whether to feel relief or grief. Maybe both. Probably both. Lilly hadn't even tried. Hadn't shown up to court. Hadn't contested. Hadn't fought for them at all. The twins were mine. Completely. Legally. Permanently. And as the neighborhood kept showing up, meals, rides, help I never asked for but desperately needed, I understood something simple and brutal. She chose herself. I chose them. And someone had to stay. I stood at the sink later that night, rinsing plates while the house settled into that quiet hum it only gets after a long day, after everyone's left and the kids are finally asleep. The twins were in bed, bellies full, cheeks flushed from laughter and too much apple pie that Mrs. Patterson had brought over earlier. I could still hear echoes of it, Bill's laugh when Daniel knocked over his drink trying to gesture dramatically, Betty bossing everyone around about dessert portions and proper plate placement, Jane insisting on pouring drinks like she ran a 5-star restaurant, taking orders and everything. I leaned against the counter and let it hit me. This was it. Not the life I planned. Not the one Lilly swore she deserved more than diapers and driveways. Not the one we talked about on those Sunday drives to Hamilton Pool, when everything felt possible. But the one that stayed. The one that showed up when things were hard and didn't bolt when they got boring. For years ago, I thought losing her meant losing everything. I didn't understand then that she was never the center of this family. The kids were. And somewhere along the way, so was I. Lilly tried a few more times after that court ruling. Less fire, more strategy. Emails instead of screaming. Apologies that sounded rehearsed, like lines from a script she'd workshopped. "I've changed" became her favorite phrase, repeated in different variations. I'm in a better place now. I'm ready to be a mother. But change needs consistency, and she still lived in bursts, showing up once, disappearing for months. The twins adjusted in their own way. Daniel asked fewer questions, got quieter when her name came up. Jane stopped drawing her altogether. Her family pictures at school showed 3 people now, sometimes 4 if you counted Mrs. Patterson, who she'd started calling Grandma Betty, without asking permission. When supervised visits came up, court-mandated, twice a year at a neutral location, they treated them like dentist appointments. Something you endure, not anticipate. They'd be quiet in the car on the way there, tense. Quiet on the way back, exhausted. One evening, after Lilly left early again from a scheduled visit, claiming she had an audition she couldn't miss, slamming her car door hard enough to rattle the windows and wake Mr. Chen's dog, Jane looked up at me and said, "She doesn't like staying." I didn't correct her. There was nothing to correct. It was the most honest thing anyone had said about Lilly in years. Winter came and went. Birthdays passed. Daniel turned 6 with a dinosaur cake Betty helped me bake that collapsed spectacularly on one side, looking more like a dinosaur that had been in a fight than a celebration. Jane turned 6 3 minutes later by birth certificate, demanding equal cake despite the structural damage, insisting hers was perfect anyway. School projects made from cardboard and too much glue. Scraped knees from learning to skateboard with Bill's patient instruction in the cul-de-sac. First sleepovers at the Hernandez house where they came back wired on sugar and stories about Bill's days as a cop. Life moved forward the way it always does, quietly, relentlessly, without waiting for anyone to catch up. Days turned into weeks, turned into seasons. Lilly faded. Not dramatically. No big goodbye scene. No final confrontation. Just fewer messages, missed visits with excuses that got thinner, more transparent, until there was nothing left but silence again. This time, it didn't hurt the same. It felt finished. Complete. Like a book you close without needing to know what happens next because you already know everything important. On a warm spring evening in May, I sat on the porch watching Daniel teach Jane how to ride her bike. The purple one Bill had found at a garage sale and fixed up, painting it her favorite color. Daniel ran beside her, shouting instructions like he'd invented balance himself, like he hadn't been terrified of his own bike just last summer. "You've got it. Don't look down. Keep pedaling. I'm right here." Jane wobbled, screamed, then rode straight into the yard, laughing so hard she tipped over anyway, landing in the grass with her legs in the air, her helmet askew. I clapped. They beamed like they'd conquered the world, like this was the greatest achievement in human history. Betty watched from her lawn chair, nodding like she'd known all along how this would turn out. Bill pulled into the driveway, off-duty but still in his constable uniform, waving like he always did, already asking the kids about their day before he'd even turned off the engine. Normal. That word used to scare me. Used to sound like settling, like giving up on something better. Now it felt earned. Deserved. Built brick by brick through nights I wasn't sure I'd survive and mornings I wasn't sure I could face. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Jane sprawled sideways across her bed, one leg hanging off, Daniel snoring softly with his stuffed T-Rex tucked under one arm. I found the old photo box in the closet, pushed behind winter coats we rarely needed in Texas. Pictures from before everything cracked. Lilly smiling young, full of fire and promise and dreams. Holding the twins as newborns, her face caught between wonder and terror, between love and loss. A version of her that existed once, maybe still existed somewhere, but not here. Not with us. I closed the box and put it back on the shelf. Not out of anger. Not even sadness anymore. Just acceptance. Some people are chapters. Some are footnotes. Some are storms you survive and never rebuild for. Storms that change the landscape permanently. What mattered was this house. These kids. The hands that reached in when mine were shaking. The neighbors who became family when family became geography, when family became a choice instead of an accident. We didn't get the family we were promised. We built a better one anyway. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.